morning. We're live on LinkedIn talking about your LinkedIn posts and getting them seen by your target audience. Now, the reason that this is an important discussion is that when you put a post out on LinkedIn, it could be seen by any one or any 1,000 of the 1 billion members on LinkedIn, but more likely it's seen by the same people repeatedly. You might want it in front of your target market. You might want it to be in front of peers in your industry. And yet maybe it's always your colleagues or your friends in your networking group. So today we're really going to dig into this to give you some techniques over the next 10 to 15 minutes that you can use to get your posts in front of the right people. Now, it's really useful when I'm in the studio. Let me put the comments up so I can see them coming through to understand where you are with your own posting at the moment. Are you a regular poster? Are you quite consistent? Or perhaps something that you're looking to do more of? Do you actually, when you've posted, do you go back to that post and look at who is engaged and why, but also looking at who has viewed? Are you looking at the analytics and the demographics to see if they fit that intended audience? In fact, do you even have an intended audience? Are you writing some posts particularly for one audience and other posts for a different audience? So it takes a while for those comments to come through to the studio. So I will just get started with, this is what I saw in my post this week. And I just looked in, you log on to LinkedIn. The very first thing that you see on your homepage are those posts. I'm just going to make it bigger so that you can see this a little bit better. So I logged on to LinkedIn and the very first post in my feed was by Andrea. Andrea had posted 25 minutes before. She's a first degree connection, and it was a video post. She'd had 2 likes on it by that point, and one of them was a first degree connection. And Andrea herself, quite a recent connection. We connected on February the 21st this year. The second post in my feed was from a company page. Now, I'm following lots of company pages, including this one. So why did this company page post come up second in my feed? When I looked at the engagement, I looked at who had liked the post. 2 of my first degree connections had liked that post, making that post come up in my feed. You might see where I'm going with this. Now, the third post was interesting because it's a reshare. Now, if you reshare somebody else's post, a smaller number in your network generally sees that post. So why is this reshared post coming up number 3 in my feed? Adam is a first degree connection, so that means it's more likely to come up, but so is the original author, Russell. So because both of those people are first degree, that obviously is giving it a stronger signal to put it into my feed. And then LinkedIn has helpfully told me that another connection of mine has liked that post. So you've got those 3 first degree connections involved in that post, which has put it into my feed. And then the 4th post that came up was from Rebecca. Now, Rebecca, I connected with on March the 13th this year, another quite new connection. And Lois, who is a first degree connection, had commented on this post. And Lois I connected to on February the 21st. So there's the same date there as the first post. I looked into what was happening on that day. And on that day, I was connecting to people that were going to the same event as me. And that's the Uplift Live event that happened in Q1. It's happening Q1 next year. And if you love a bit of LinkedIn geekery, I would recommend going along. That aside, I have created a little bit of a new crowd a new algorithm bubble with the people that I have connected with from this event. And although Lois and I haven't been commenting and liking on each other's posts, we've been in that same network. And that is how easy it is to get yourself into a new algorithm loop. So there are 4 steps. Number 1 is to be connected. It might sound really obvious, but if you're not connected to your target audience, they're not so likely to see your post in their feed. And there seems to be a thing that new connections are more likely to come up in the feed as well, which really means that we need to be consistently connecting to people, particularly if you've got a target company, and be thinking about the new connections you can bring in at that company. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are doing this already. Are you connecting with your target audience? And are you doing number 2, which is engaging with their content? Now, this is a bit time consuming, and so it can often get missed. I understand why, but what we have found is that if you are liking, commenting, reposting the other people's posts, that your posts are likely to come up in their feed, because LinkedIn is quite reciprocal. How do I know this? Because we do this at scale. We have connected with our target audience. We have sent follow-up messages, and we haven't been engaging with their posts. And then the following month brought an engagement, a lead nurturing element into that campaign, the only thing that was changed. When you look at the analytics of the posts, you start seeing those people coming up in the feed, and we know it because we're targeting a certain company, and the company is coming up in the list of demographics. That is my favorite, particularly if you're doing ABM or enterprise selling. Having a look at which companies are viewing your posts is really good to know if you're on track. Number 3 is to send a follow-up message. So rather than connecting and then scurrying off to your next thing and hoping that it will happen in terms of your post will land in the feed because they're a first-degree connection, it actually doesn't so much unless you've had a follow-up message. Even better, a recent two-way conversation. But the simple act of when they've connected to say, hey, good to connect, really, really works. How do we know that again? We've tested it. Without the second message, the target audience is coming up less in that demographic analytics. And then the 4th thing, and this is the thing that happens for most people accidentally, as you saw from my feed, is to have mutual connections between the people who you want to see your post and yourself. If you have first-degree connections in common, then that post is more likely to come up in their feed. Now we're going to dig into number 4 because that is the secret sauce, and that is the thing that you really want to get right. So connect, engage, follow-up message, and then have mutual connections liking your post. Before I just explain the process that you would go through in order to get those mutual connections, you might be wondering, and say it in the comments if you would like to, but you might be wondering, well, it sounds great theoretically, Laura, but how are you certain of that? Now, I am certain because we've been doing this at scale where we've taken a lot of colleagues from one company and decided that these are the companies that they want their posts to be in front of, and use this process. And by doing it at scale and then looking at the analytics of each individual post and working out how many impressions from each target company, we've been able to discover something quite interesting. That over a period of time, when you're building up a lot of connections in one target company, and then doing those things that I mentioned, then those target companies are also coming up top of the list of companies who have viewed your posts the most. They don't always come up in exactly the same order, but the top 20, 30 companies that are coming up time and time again, having viewed your post, are coming up as the top connected companies are also the companies viewing your posts the most. So here we have a bit of a strategy, and I often think of it a bit like being a puppeteer, pulling those strings, basically having a cohesive strategy that your colleagues can follow in order to enhance the chances of your posts coming up in their feed. So if you are interested in being a puppeteer, then this is what is coming next. I would recommend that you engage before you connect with anybody, and where you have a target company that you want to be in front of, connect with their more active colleagues first. Now, on free LinkedIn, this is the top screen grab here, and you start searching for people and you go into all filters, you do have a handy filter called connections of. So you can actually pick your stakeholders, decision makers, and find connections of them at the target company for you to connect with. If you use Sales Navigator, you can also use that filter, but find those that have posted in the last 30 days. And that is a really easy way in. So rather than connecting with the decision maker, you're connecting to the colleagues that sit around them that are more active on LinkedIn. Because what we've found is that second degree connections are more likely to accept a connection request than third degree. So by building up the second degree connections that happen to be their colleagues, so you have many mutual connections and your second degree, then you're much more likely to get connected with that key person. So it's a little bit of a strategy in order to get that person connected to you, to get your posts into their feed. And then if you keep engaging with their active colleagues, they're seeing their colleagues post because they're in an echo chamber themselves with only seeing their colleagues post because of the mutual connections, the liking of each other's posts and so on. And so you're kind of tapping into that a little bit. And then this is where the real magic happens. Your colleagues also connect to those key stakeholders. Because you're connected, your colleagues have a better chance of connecting, not all on the same day or the same week, make it subtle over time. But we have seen an increase in connection acceptance rates when that key stakeholder is connecting to more than one person from your company. Quite an interesting stat. We actually went from overall a connection acceptance rate of 36% to over 60% when we started putting this cross-connecting strategy in place. And then your colleagues, who are now a mutual connection between you and your key stakeholder, they like your post. That is really easy to engineer. You put your post out and you say to your colleagues, do you mind liking the post? And then what happens is your post goes in the feed. Your decision maker from your target company is seeing it, not just because you're first degree connection, you've done a follow-up message, you've engaged with them, but you've also got mutual connections who are liking the post because they're your colleagues. But because you've been engaging with their colleagues' posts, there may also be that human reciprocation of their colleagues liking your posts as well. And this is how you're tapping into their algorithm, but it sort of does this mini swirling thing. This is you on the left-hand side, your company, and on the right-hand side, your target company. And it really does work. So I hope that you have got some ideas now on how you might want to go about your LinkedIn strategy if you're really trying to get posts into the feed. If you want some help in how to set this up and do it yourself, I have a LinkedIn Academy that you can join 2 weeks for free. I'll do a coaching session with you. That's the QR code on the left-hand side. If you would like somebody to be the puppeteer for you, then the right-hand side QR is the agency Pitch One to One who can do that for you. And if you enjoyed this live, if you learned anything at all and you'd like to come to my next live, it's on June the 12th, 4 p.m. Very exciting, as it's going to be the first time that I'm in a actual live studio with my guest, Peter Nichols from Voodoo. And we're going to be talking about increasing your company page following on LinkedIn. If you want to find that event, you can always go to my LinkedIn profile. If you go to my featured section, I've always got a article where I've got my previous live recordings as well as the sign up link to the next event. So go to my featured section, sign up or save the date, 4 p.m. June the 12th. And hope to see you there. I will just do the outro. If any questions come up, please put them in the comments and I'll get back to them on the thread. So great to see you and see